Welcome again to David Skinner. It's been a long time, David, and such a lot of things have happened. And you're in the Costa del Bournemouth no longer, but you have been for the whole of what has happened to you. And it's getting quite a lot of press because Bournemouth used to be the place for family holidays, nice, relaxing British time in the rain. And it's changed, David. It's really gone down. Have you got an explanation for that?
Many things. You could say it's in the water. Um, you could say that it's been the the MP for Bournemouth for the last ever since I was there. We arrived at the same time in 2010, and we left at the same time. Um, basically, um, Conservative MP Connor Burns. You could say it was the Liberal Green Council, which is still in place, totally corrupt. They illegally fly the Progress flag outside the town hall and the UN the flag when you're not supposed to fly any political flags at all, only, Great Britain. You could say it was that, but you could also say it was the influx of Islam. Uh, Muslims have sort of taken over sections of Bournemouth, especially the going down to the centre. A lot of the shops now are fronts for drug dealing. Um, the centre of Bournemouth now has many, like I suppose a lot of towns, big stores that have closed up. A lot of beggars on the street, strange people, drug addicts. Um, so that's what a lot of holiday. The old I remember in my day, Bournemouth was the place for families to come, buckets and spades and down to the sea and water wings and splashing in the wind. And you could hear from the cliff top the screams and yells of delight of the children, swimming in the sea. It was a perfect place for holidays. But, now we saw, was it last year, the Muslims turning up in force and praying on the beach, dominating the beach with their bums in the air, praying. This is not really the sight that holidaymakers want to come and see.
Well, you've been sending us over the years various videos that you've taken, especially around the Pride marches.
Yeah, yeah.
And we've been quite shocked of how the institutions, the NHS, Barclays Bank, if we can call that an institution, the police have all been taken on board. The police cars, a lot of them have been painted in rainbow colours. Don't know what that's cost the taxpayer. What's happened there?
Well, as we know, behind a lot of this has been Stonewall, uh, the most powerful LGBT lobby group in Europe, who since Tony Blair came into power were given free rein to run and coach in horses through our legal system. Um, and also, Tony Blair put in place, well, that's not Stonewall, Lord Wahid Ali, Muslim uh, homosexual who pushed through LGBT legislation, pink law, through the House of Lords. But with Stonewall, they ran this thing called the Equality Workplace Index of top 100 employers, who are LGBT friendly. And it seemed that every major organization, both governmental and economic, educational, were all scrambling to be top employer of that year for LGBT. This was, and in fact, the Home Office was number one in when Theresa May came into power. No, sorry, when she was the Home Secretary in 2010. Home Office was. Then you had the MI5, you had umpteen police authorities, and I don't know where Bournemouth stood on that, but they're very LGBT, um, and of course, the 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 well, not of course, but the the former Dorset Police Crime Commissioner, Martin Underhill, was actually a trustee of Bournemouth Gay Pride Parade. He marched in it with orange shorts and a yellow t-shirt or yellow shorts, and he led uh, from behind him there were the rainbow police cars throwing out. It's too difficult to explain, but they introduced in Dorset, Hampshire. They had what they call the lesbian gay liaison police officers. They had, I think, at one time they had 100 of them, and their task was to go around and find the abominable homophobe. They knew he was out there somewhere, a bit like the abominable snowman, the Yeti. And their job, they were going to seek him out. They were going to find the homophobe. It's sort of tackling homophobic crime, that's or incidents they called them, homophobic incidents. And the police cars were throwing out to the crowd these lanyards with Laglo, lesbian, gay, the other thing is during that, I remember during the one when I got assaulted, my sign smashed up. They were giving out condoms to the crowd. I mean, it's just supposed to be a family-friendly parade, and you've got all sorts of perverts, degenerates. A paedophile actually ran or led the Dorset Humanists, the Dorset Humanist Society. A chap called Aaron, was it Aaron Darkwood or Aaron Jones? He changed his name, but he actually walked in front of the Dorset Humanists. In fact, the Humanists are having a big conference in Bournemouth on June the 13th. I wish I could be there.
Well, listen, you've fallen foul of the system. And it's fair to say that two WPCs, women police officers who were
One,
let
one,
one.
one. The other one was simply a police office worker who has the prestigious title of governance and communication officer, but she's nothing but an office worker.
Well, whatever. We've got two members of the lesbian society took exception to your views. Now, one thing I've got to say here, David, is looking at the footage of these parades. Frankly, if anything, most things that took place regularly year after year were on a normal day, a non-promotion of pride. They'd have been arrested for what they were doing, whether it be gyrating, whether their placards would be allowed. That was hate speech. It's quite bizarre that something like this, that is so anti family, could be actually supported by British law.
Well, the gay uh, parades are actually an offence to public decency. There are the laws, and these actually break them because they cause alarm and distress, and they are a threat to public decency. If you, if you, as I say, if you sort of, I mean, it gets to the point now in some countries like Canada or America where the men and women walk stark naked and waggle all their bits in front of children.
Unbelievable. Canada, we know, is an outlier, but my goodness me, it's spreading throughout the world, even to the Antipodes. And it depends very much, David. on which government is in power as well. Some governments are more liberal, progressive, call it what you may, but they're supporting these people. And at the moment, we're in a dreadful state as a nation. Do you see any link here?
Well, the link is that we have um, given up on the God of the Bible, this country, a long time ago, and has gone chasing after other gods. And God says, okay, if that's what you want, if you really want to follow those gods, I'll let you go, but you will suffer the consequences. I will take my restraining hand, the protecting hand, away from you, and I'll give you over to what you want. And all that can be seen in the Bible. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 15 to 61, describe exactly Britain today. Um, it's very graphic. It is worth reading, Deuteronomy, and it is now being quoted frequently, I hear, and especially in America. You know, American pastors and churches are now quoting that passage.
There's a great difference between the UK and America, David. They have certainly got hold of this and are benefiting in many ways. But I originally started this out by saying that there were two lesbian police officers that you've fallen foul of. Now, this has been going on for years, which is dreadful. And you've been really put through it. I mean, you've had numerous court cases against you. Be specific. What were they objecting to?
Well, it's quite a history, and I'm not quite sure that we we have time to go through, but it all began in 2022 when Bournemouth Council ran a bogus consultation, a public consultation, on whether to institute what they call buffer zones or safe zones around abortion clinics or the abortion clinic in Bournemouth. At that time, I think there were only five. Um, there were not many. You could count them on one hand. These buffer zones or safe zones. And these were instituted to stop women entering into the clinics who were going for an abortion to be approached or in any way influenced to consider maybe not killing their child. These were not done violently or invasively. They were done by mainly Catholic people, just simply standing, with some signs or giving out leaflets, offering help, uh, trying to sort of uh, what's the word, get the women to reconsider before taking a step from which they can never return. Just offering an alternative. There is a choice. Um, I mean, the feminists and all that, they talk about it's a woman's body and it's her choice, but in fact, it's not her choice. A lot of them are coerced, and once they get into the clinics, there's no alternative whatsoever. They put on a conveyor belt, and before they know what's happened, they're out on the street, and that's it. And then they suffer the consequences. But so what happened was at Bournemouth, they had this. It was a 16-minute so-called debate in Bournemouth Council on the 12th of July 2022, completely bogus, and whether to go ahead and have a consultation. Well, the consultation was done, and it was only about 5,000 people who responded, most of whom were probably bought in to respond to it, feminists, considering that the population of Bournemouth is, I don't know, 350,000 people. Very few people knew about it. It wasn't something you alerted. I mean, the whole thing about the clinics are they're very quiet. They're down the end of a long, long road as a cul-de-sac, you know, out of sight, out of mind. You don't actually put your abortion clinics in the center of town where everybody can see them. It's something done in the dark, out of the way. So anyway, it was then unilaterally decided by one of the councillors called Bobby Dove. She went ahead and she decided there was no debate then. Once the consultation had come in, the results, there was no debate. She did it, and then on the I think it was the 18th of October 2022, the buffer zone was set up around the clinic, and it was a huge area, 500 meters by 250, which encompasses to this day over 100 dwellings. And it means that this so-called safe zone is quite the opposite. It's a very unsafe zone because in it you lose all your human rights of assembly, thought, speech, discussion, choice. you know, all those. If you're seen, reading a Bible, or you take photographs of people going past in the street, or you discuss with your teenage daughter not to have an abortion, you can be reported. Now, I don't know whether any of that has happened, but in theory, that is what can happen. And what happened was that Adam Smith Connor, ex-paratrooper, who had, when he was a young man, aborted his child, and then when he became a Christian, he suddenly realized what he had done. Anyway, he had gone down outside the clinic in December and late November, late November, and he had simply prayed in his mind, not out loud, with his back to the clinic. He was behind a tree, and he was intercepted by a lesbian community police officer who asked him what was the nature of his prayer. First of all, she displayed great condolence towards him. Oh, very sorry, Mr. Smith. About your loss of your child. Very sorry. Crocodile tears. She says, but tell me, she said. So she was trying to find some evidence that he was protesting, which is you're not allowed to do outside the clinic. Not allowed to protest. So it was deemed that his standing quietly with his eyes closed, his hands crossed. He wasn't kneeling. Didn't have a rosary. He didn't have a prayer. I mean, if he'd been a Muslim with a prayer mat, they probably wouldn't have. They probably would have left him alone. Um, anyway, but to try to invade a private conversation between him and God is an absolute. I don't know what you call that. It's sort of sacrilegious. But anyway, so he was then fined £100. He refused to pay. Later, he ended up in court. I think the court costs were £100,000. He was only made to have to pay 9,000, but he then has got this criminal record. The other person was Livia Tasiki Bolt. She went down and she simply had a placard saying, "Do you want to talk?" And I was there with her when the police came. I was actually there.
Well, this sounds a bit more like North Korea than southern Bournemouth. So where do you come into this?
Where I came in was in the following year, 2023, February. Stephen Green of Christian Voice came down to do a presentation. He started off on the outer fringes, about 500 meters away, explaining that if you cross that side of the road, you're in free China, whereas if you cross that side of the road, you're in communist China. didn't say that, but basically it was that. And then he stood outside the clinic with a cameraman, uh, with his, presenting to his would-be audience exactly what the rules are and all the naughty things you're allowed to say. One of the things he pointed out um, was it over 1,000 passages in the Bible could not be read because they mention the word mother, father, womb, baby, murder, and there are many more words, that you're not allowed to mention in that area. Anyway, I went down to photograph him, and it was in the process of photographing him that I was intercepted by a rogue policeman called Lorne Castle, who accused me of taking photographs of the clinic, something you're not allowed to do. You're not allowed to take photographs of it or take photographs of anybody going into the clinic. He accused me of doing that. Anyway, when he looked at my photographs, they were identical to the ones that appeared in the Bournemouth Echo, because down below, sorry, I was up high on a kind of footbridge and coming down, um, which arrives by the entrance to the clinic. Um, the Bournemouth Echo were there as well. The photographs they had of Stephen Green, the police, were identical to mine. But anyway, he said, right, he said, I'm going to seize your camera because I think you're going to take photographs. you know. So I hadn't taken photographs, but he said, so he pocketed those. And then he conducted the most bizarre bullying program. Fortunately, what he didn't realize was I had a secret camera running. It was my top button. And I was recording him, the whole event. Afterwards, I sent this off to the police, the complaints. And with that, I had, after a couple of weeks, a lovely letter from a temporary inspector, Fern Graham. Dear Mr. Skinner, I do want to apologise for the behaviour of Lorne Castle. And yes, we will convey your concerns about the abortion clinic to Bournemouth Council. And yes, we will uphold the Pelion principles. Now, Pelion principles of policing were instituted by Robert Peel in 1829, I think it was. But it was at a day and age when society shared the same kind of values, Christian values. Robert Peel was a Christian, so they were underwritten by the Christian faith. And at that time, I remember our parents, even they might not have been Christian, they did sort of subscribe to Christian values and Christian truths, even though they not have understood them. But generally, society, and then something happened in the 60s. All that began to change. But anyway, she said, yes, and by the way, she said, Lorne Castle, we can't pursue him because he's no longer employed by the Dorset police. This is only after a couple of weeks. And I thought, Skinner, you're a powerful man. You've got rid of this policeman. And then she finally finished off by saying, if you have any further concerns, don't hesitate to contact her. So I responded immediately, God bless you, ma'am. You've restored my trust in the police. Uh, Policing is a very difficult job, and I'm so glad you're going to, enforce the Pelion principles. Well done. It was very short. What happened then was I didn't respond immediately. Over the next 2 months, I did a lot of research into gestation, the means of killing a child in the womb, the consequence for mothers, physical, psychological, um, many aspects of this shocking business. And after 2 months, I put this into a report, which I sent to the police. I also sent it to Bournemouth Council. 76 Bournemouth councillors. All I got from them was a rap over the knuckles from some chief councillor who said, in future, you send all your reports through her, not to the individual councillors. But I sent the report. That was even before I contacted the police. I sent this report to an Inspector Neil Leet, who was a very good inspector. I'd had a good rapport with him. David Siddick, the Dorset Police Commissioner, with whom I'd also had a very good, I was safe with these people. I sent it to the Chief Constable, Amanda Pearson, who I discovered is a very LGBT friendly person. She might even be LGBT herself. And of course, I sent it to Fern Graham, since she was the one who had invited me to send my concerns to her. Anyway, not long after, there's a knock on the door. Policeman comes, tall policeman, with a little policewoman on his arm. And it was tea time. And he invited me to the police station and to come with a lawyer, with a solicitor. And I had no idea really what this was about. I twigged quickly it was vaguely to do with the letter I'd sent, but I didn't really know who my accuser was or even what it was I was being accused of.